So this is the beach just before the rain starts. As you can probably hear, the wind blowing up. The waves are getting choppy. So I'll take a brave decision and sit just here so that we can discuss today our comments, questions and answers. What I think I need to do is try and shelter the microphone a little from the wind. I need one of those big fluffy things you see in India. It's very interesting. Every street corner you turn around, there's a Bollywood movie being made, and they have these huge big foil discs. I just saw one recently, actually, just here on the railway line. A whole family standing in the railway line. It looked particularly a dangerous place to stand, with all these cameramen around, and these big, you always know it's a film crew, because they have these big floppy foil, shiny, reflective things to use the sunlight as natural light. And the fluffy microphones. So you never know what you're going to bump into next in places like this, but often Bollywood, and often films that are TV programs situated in India are often filmed here in Sri Lanka, because it does sort of represent more the old image of India that we have, that we imagine, that we're familiar with in the West, rather than its modern day high-tech sort of Silicon City kind of pretense. So there are some very unspoiled places here, as I'm discovering each day. Maybe I'm struggling here a little bit to keep this, I think maybe turn it around. So I'll start off with apologies for the haphazard nature of these talks currently. I'm acclimatizing and finding different places. Although I'm not moving around, I'm in one place still because it does rain a lot in the afternoon and evening. I'm still establishing myself in the area. It's becoming quite busy now that I've been here for a couple of days. Pindapart has become, well, dare I say it, not unmanageable, but quite a lot to carry back. I did remember yesterday to turn on the, whatever it is you have to turn on your phone to make it record how far you've walked. And I did just under 9,000 steps for Pindapart this morning, which apparently, if you Google that, is just about 6 or 7 kilometres. So it's a good few miles walking there and back. And on the way back, and continuing on the way back, I'm collecting food, my load gets heavier. But today, some upasakas caught up with me and were able to carry the extra load back to my kuti, and then they joined me for a Dharma talk and blessing, which was very nice, and the usual course of events as goes on in a traditional forest monastery. Prior to the meal, the lay people come, help, sort the food out, serve, and you sit, then you give a talk, a blessing, then they go, and you eat your meal, and you're left to your own devices for the rest of the day. So that seems to be how naturally things are panning out, by staying in one place for not long, just over a week now. I'd say it's working out quite well. The abundance of food, then a little later on, the tuk-tuk man Kapia Gamini came, and I asked him if he would kindly sort that lot out, which he did. He put it all into different bags, distributed it around the village and various people in need. All kinds of things, soap powder, toothpaste, I have plenty of everything. So anything that's over and above my daily needs, I ask him to distribute around the area as best he can. So that's today, this morning, what I've been up to, and it's now, clouds are looming. There will be some heavy rain shortly, but it's very nice because I'm getting a nice sea breeze. And excuse me if it's making a bit of a windy sound in the microphone, but I'd like to try and just run through some comments. I did have a bit of a Dharma talk planned, but if I don't catch up on the comments, then it becomes a little bit of a list to deal with. So we'll do that, and then maybe I'll continue through the weekend. We'll see how it goes. So I don't have a weekend, so it doesn't make much difference to me. I more or less don't want to bombard people with too many videos, really. Rather quality than quantity. So this comment is, wow, you did video cuts and the audio didn't get out of sync. Well, thank you for that. This subscriber has been very kindly assisting with the technical side over this year. He's supplied various microphone equipment and cables and things, and once he sorted out a video, or twice maybe, that was all sound was different to the picture. He was just commenting to that effect. Well, that's because I didn't do anything clever. I did what I just did now. I held the phone, I didn't change camera or turn it off or on, just paused it and put it down. Now if you hear that sound behind me, this is the railway line where they were filming. This is a train going by. Very quaint sort of looking old trains. You could be in a different age. So yes, no, well that's good. I mean, I've just I wanted to show you this little surrounding area, so I got quite technical and moved the phone around like this and made sure I had the stand in its right place before. It's not it's quite a heavy metal stand, so you can just balance it anywhere, but it's a bit cumbersome, but it's good, it works. I wouldn't want one of these tripod things. Someone did give me one of those in the last place and I couldn't fathom it out at all. It was way too complicated. This is just a metal fold up thing. It's quite handy. Okay, comments. Stop me waffling. What food do you miss the most? Oh, I don't really. There's such a variety of food. I mean, here, I'm getting used to it here. There's such a variety of food here. Thailand, I thought, was a huge variety of food, but I suppose having been there for quite a number of years, I've got used to their different kinds of food and that variety. Here, it's all a mystery. I'm not sure what's what at all here, so every package, a lot of the food here is coming to me wrapped up in parcels, which is good until you come across someone on Pindapat who wants to put loose food, curries and things into a bowl, and then I'm not quite sure what to do. But working on that, I'll get used to it. They usually sort it out amongst themselves and find a way of dealing with it. But food that I miss, not anything in particular. Do you know, one thing that I quite like to have occasionally in the past was Marmite on toast. And I thought I missed that, but actually that is something you can get here, which I'm surprised about. They actually have Marmite. They have bread here, real bread. This I suppose is a leftover from the British colonisation of the country. You don't have ordinary bread in India though. You have the normal Indian breads like naan and chapati and roti and these kinds of things, flat breads. But loaf bread, they have this is in plentiful supply here, but saying that, even though that's now fully available here, I could have Marmite on toast, for instance, I suppose. I don't know how I'd toast it though. It hasn't been something I've missed so much that I've gone out and said, hey, get me some Marmite on toast. No, there's no particular food that I miss, so I can't really give you an exciting answer on that. I think because all the food I have here is more various, for a vegetarian that is, than You see, and I wasn't a vegetarian all my life, but I certainly don't miss meat. In fact, I'm quite not keen on the idea of it at all. So that's not a problem. But as far as vegetarian food in the UK there's not so much availability of vegetarian food readily available there as there is here. I suppose there are more vegetables to choose from, but vegetarians don't just sit down to a plate of vegetables. We make something, have something more interesting than that, and there's plenty of interesting and delicious foods here. Is the flags now outside your room, Bhante? So those flags, this is the Buddhist flag, which is, forget the order of the colours, orange, white, blue, red, yellow. It actually looks a bit like the gay pride flag, I think. Similar, but it has a different stripe along the bottom. The Buddhist flag is kind of common throughout the world. It's a modern thing, it's not historic or anything. Yes, I did put some outside my kuti, my room, because if people, like the people who were looking for me this morning, caught up with me on Alms Round, they'd been looking for where, they asked me if they could come and visit me. I said, yes, please do. They hadn't been able to find where I'm staying. So I put these flags there so that anyone who's specifically looking, they can see the flags and know, that's where it is. I can say, hey, it's the house with the flags. So there are some right there, yes. Are you coming to Anuradhapura? Yes, I will be going there at some point. Now, this was the old capital of this country, the longest lasting capital of this country. It's also a very historic Buddhist place. The oldest surviving relative of the Bodhi tree in India is there. The original cutting was brought here and planted there, and therefore it's part of the original tree the Buddha sat under and became enlightened. I do have plans to go there at some point in the future. No hurry. I don't know when that will be, and I'll be sure to let you know so that you can look me up or I can look you up, and maybe we'll meet up there. Yes. Good evening, Bhante. Is transgender accepted in Buddhism? Can a transgender be ordained as a monk / nun? Now, I'm not saying that transgenders are necessarily gay, but it's interesting how these comments and questions have a kind of a running theme. It's always the case. I suppose it's because they're as a result of something I've said in a video. However, in answer to your question, anyone is accepted in Buddhism, no problem at all. And as far as ordination is concerned, as long as you are over the age of 20, it is a little different for females, but this is being addressed, and it isn't impossible these days. Now, the point being, when you become ordained as either a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni, you are renouncing sexuality. You're becoming celibate. So, to a large extent, it's irrelevant. However, you do have men living with men and women living with women quite separately for that reason, that we are celibate and there must be no confusion over that, or temptation. Now, in the time of the Buddha, there were, I'm sure, what is the equivalent of, in today's terminology, transgender people, not having. Well, yes, because there's reminiscence. Nowadays you have these. It's a religious order. These men who are dressed as women who go around India, clapping like this, and that's asking for money. Now, I think they have various. I don't know how it works, transgenderism and such like, but they're clearly men who are living the life of as ladies as part of their faith. It's a religious order, but that's nothing to do with Buddhism. But no one through their sexual preferences is going to be refused ordination because you are renouncing that. This is my view, my understanding. So it should be that it's irrelevant. Now, as well as a man who wants to ordain as a monk, who has had heterosexual relationships in the past and is still tempted by the opposite sex, has to give all of that up. So does somebody of the so I'm not talking about transgender now. I'm talking about people who, and I don't know what the correct terminology these days is for gay people, but people who are gay. If you are you see, if you fully have done the transgender thing, you finished, so you were a man and now you're a lady, I would imagine you have to ordain as a nun. If you were a lady and you're now a man, you would have to ordain as a monk. If you're going through the process, I think you'd have to wait, because where would you go? We have to keep the sexes separate once you are an ordained monk or nun, once you are a monastic. Because that is the way it's practically been applied for thousands of years. Yes, it's fine as far as I know, and I know there are very many, if you find different monasteries, there are monasteries, different monasteries and different traditions that certainly give that all consideration, because it's a worthwhile thing to be doing. But it's nothing new, this is what I was trying to say. In the Buddha's time, all kinds of different people would come to be ordained. But you see, you're leaving all of that behind. There's no good coming to the monastery to ordain as a monk, having transgendered from a woman to be a man, and then spending your entire monastic career really focusing on this aspect of your life, because like we give up our relationships as heterosexual people, or we don't even accept ourselves as men and monks and nuns, we all look the same. We all shave our heads, we all wear the same robes. So it's not even a clothing issue. So it really should not be a talked about thing, an issue. There have to be certain, you're either one thing or the other in order for your living, your practical circumstances to fit in. But as far as being a Buddhist is concerned, there's no problem. The third precept of sexual misconduct, and again, that's nothing to do with being transgender, is it? But the third precept is a pretty open-ended, it's just do no harm in terms of your sexuality. Everything has to be consensual, and you're not taking advantage of anyone, you're not hurting anyone's feelings. But in the time of the Buddha, there weren't just monogamous relationships. There were people with many wives, men with many wives, and there were all sorts of things going on that was regarded as irrelevant, because when you become a monk or a nun, you're giving it all up, so it doesn't matter. I'm sorry if I've waffled on with that question. I get a bit confused with what's appropriate and what's not to say. So I'm only just saying my understanding that Buddhism is very flexible with all such matters. Again, I'm skipping the rather long ones. Someone who's seen in this kuti of mine, am I going to do a mural, they're asking, because they love murals. Well, no, I'm not an artist. I don't do painting or even mandalas. You've seen these things that the Tibetan monks, beautiful mandalas that they make with the coloured sands. I don't do any arts and crafts manufacturing or anything like this you might see in some traditions as part of their practice. Personally, I believe that all of that kind of thing is a little artistic in my view, and going a little bit on the fringe of distracting oneself from the practice. So I keep it very disciplined to a specific time allocation of my day, and don't really go outside of that. And I don't really develop or expand upon what I've been doing for the last year as far as these talks and these little videos are concerned. So art isn't really my thing. So this is interesting. I'm happy you made it to Sri Lanka safe and well. Thank you. Well, when I go to temples here in the US and in Thailand, I see many different Buddha statues. Some are lying down, some have more than 2 arms, some are female statues. Can you talk about all the different rupas and what I'm actually looking at? Sorry, not a very good description. I think that's a very good description, so don't apologise. You've described there the entire selection of Buddha rupas you might see, very concisely, which are the 4 postures. The Buddha said that this practice can be in 4 postures: sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. So you'll often see Buddha rupas in one of these 4 postures, usually this posture, sitting in samadhi, meditation. There are different hand gestures, or what are they called? I've already talked about that in another video, so you can look at that at another time. But in terms of the actual Buddha rupas, statues, you'll see usually this posture, sitting in the meditation position, or standing, often with an alms bowl, or just standing very straight, because we have standing meditation. It's not so common, but this state. In lying down position, so these are the 3 Buddha rupas: sitting, standing, and it's usually a quite tall Buddha you'll see standing, because he was tall, apparently. Lying down, he's lying on his right side. Just trying to think of all the ones I've seen. They're always the same way around. Yes, his right side, it's called the lion, as in posture, I think, with his head like this, lying. I'm not going to do it in the sand here, with his feet like legs, all like parallel together like that, not all tangled up or anything, in a very straight but lying posture. Now, in lying meditation, rather than having the head like that, you have your arm, well, you lay down like this. So this was also the posture that he attained to parinibbana, his final death. So if you go to Kushinagar, where he died, to the temple there's a huge, and often in many temples there are these huge lying down Buddhas, which are his parinibbana when he died. So they're the 3 Buddha rupa: sitting, standing, or lying down. Walking doesn't work with a statue, obviously, because that involves motion, but you might see the ones where he's on arms around. He has an umbrella, or a glot as it's called, and an alms bowl. That would signify his walking. Then what you're referring to as far as some female and some male, the one with the, how would you say, the, what do you call them politely, bosoms, boobies, which you often see, is actually, and more than 2 arms, is actually the, it's like Guan Yin, but called Lokatasara. I've forgotten the name. I apologise for that. I've got a mind like a sieve. This is a depiction in some countries, especially Thailand, of the Maitreya Buddha, the next Buddha. The Buddha of compassion, and is often depicted with many hands, signifying the giving, generosity and compassion, and is depicted as a female, so has the boobies. But this isn't a statue, a rupa of Siddhartha Gautama, the current Buddhasasana Buddha. It's a depiction of the future Buddha, whom will be in a long, long time after we're gone. The next Buddha is due to come along. This Buddhasasana is told to us by the Buddha to last for 5,000 years. We're only halfway through that, 2,500 years, and then it will be many, many thousands, countless eons or something, before the next Buddha comes along and another Buddhist religion is established. It's Buddha Sasana. And this is one version of how that is depicted. It's based on Guan Yin, often, that statue, whom is a Hindu god of a similar nature, looking-wise. But you'll see that often in Buddhist temples in Thailand, very often. Yeah, I hope that is clears up or answers that for you, clears that up. Oh, that's a lot of questions in. I think I'll take on the challenge because it's a lot of questions in one. You say you have a bramble of questions. That's an interesting way of putting it. A bramble of question. Right. What is the relationship between monks and lay people? That's the first one. So that is, we have the fourfold assembly. Upasakas and upasikas, that is laymen and laywomen. Bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, that is monks and nuns. These are the fourfold assembly. The lay people, what is the question? The relationship is such that the lay people support the monks and the nuns by giving them food every day. The monks and nuns support the lay people by offering them the chance to ask questions and discuss and hear the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. And there are other ancillary things like blessings and this kind of taking refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha and precepts, the Panchasila. So Tisadana and Panchasila is taking refuge in the Triple Gem, the Buddha Dharma Sangha, and the taking of the 5 precepts which you do with a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni. Do lay people choose a monk as a teacher? Yes, they can do. I always like to say, well, remember, your teacher is the Buddha, and the teachings are the Dharma. The Sangha are the lineage of monks and nuns who have continued since the Buddha's time to proliferate, talk about, yes, give those teachings in a way that lay people can understand in the culture that they're in and the time they're in. Because of course, if everything was kept exactly the same and wasn't made appropriate to the culture and the time and the geographical location, then some things might just not really make a lot of sense. So it is necessary to have not necessarily a teacher. You can have many. I certainly have many teachers because as a monk you need a teacher. You have one official one who is your Upajjhaya, and you have who ordains you, and then you may have an appointed one by that Upajjhaya, whom is your day-to-day teacher in everyday things that you need to discuss with your teacher, usually whom you're living with or near or have access to. But then you may have other people you regard as your teachers that you listen to their talks, you may ask them questions, you may have some form of verbal or written relationship with, or maybe it's purely one way. You just listen to their Dharma talks, for instance, on YouTube or something like that, and you can consider them or they as your teacher. So you choose, yes, you do choose. Do lay people, yes, okay. Can a monk have patrons? Patrons. I think a patron's people who support you financially. I think, yes, that's a relationship between lay people and monks. The lay people, usually it's food, but they're also supporting you with financial needs like getting you from A to B, transport, costs, medicines, and this kind of thing. In a way, that's a patron. Is that the right understanding of the word patrons? I'm not sure. Patronage. But yes, if that's what it is, for instance, I have to have somebody, we don't call them a patron, we call them a steward in this tradition, of any money, financial donations that come in. They have stewardship, or they're like the trustees of a trust account to deal with the money that's there and make sure that it's available to buy any tickets or pay for visas or things like that. So that's a kind of patronage, if I understand the meaning of the word. But maybe I'll look it up afterwards, or someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Are there student-teacher relationships? Well, I mean, a student and a teacher has to have a relationship. That is the relationship, student-teacher relationship. But that goes no further than that. You could be that your teacher is a monk you're living in the same monastery with. So in effect, you have a domestic relationship. But if you mean relationships in any other sense of the word, monks and nuns don't have those kind of relationships at all. So no, not in that sense. So there are, in some traditions, you may find up in the northern traditions, Tibetan schools, you'll see even monks who are married and things like that. But I don't know anything about that. They're from old religions that have taken on Buddhism throughout the ages and combined various different aspects of it. So, but in Theravada Buddhism, there's nothing more than the literal teacher-student relationship. But that does work both ways. It's very important to know that. It's not a doctrinal teaching. It's an exploration. The teacher of Dharma, the person speaking of the Dharma, is merely sharing their experience and their understanding of the Buddha's teachings, the Dharma, with you to try out and experience for yourself, in order that you can learn through that experience and see the truth. Not have to believe in what a teacher says, but to experience for yourself what really does happen, both with the mind and with the body in this existence, and learn to develop wisdom, panya, from that experiential process. What was your relationship with your teacher like? Well, I think I've answered that in the former questions. I have many teachers, and when I'm with them, I can't really specifically answer that. It's quite formal in a living monastery situation. We don't have chit-chat, we don't talk whilst we're eating together. The most talking would go about, I suppose, at a certain part of the day, which is just a literal matter of passing facts. There's not a lot of chit-chat going on, so that kind of relationship, not much. One needs to look at a teacher as someone who inspires you, and you learn from the example they're setting. Now that doesn't require much toing and froing. You see how someone's living, and you develop a relationship over quite a long period of time living with someone. That is a good teacher. Living with them, or listening to them, being with them, seeing how they live. Oh, I've lost my place. Relation with your teacher. I know you spoke of insurance, but are you allowed to have any emergency funds? Yeah, so we don't specifically have insurance. I suppose if it's a legal requirement in a country, you would have to. I've not had anyone ever ask me that. So, and we just don't have money, that's it, as monks. But I personally do have emergency funds in place, as I said, in a trust, run by a trustee or trustees, just so that if something happened to me and I needed to be expatriated, flown back to my country, or some very expensive medical treatments through an emergency was to occur to me, say here in Sri Lanka or any country, I wouldn't want the local people who would support that. And in Thailand I had to go to the eye hospital there, and in India I had to go to an eye hospital there. I wouldn't want those lay supporters of the monastery to have to come up with such expensive things, so I have access to that emergency fund for those purposes only, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's from a good intention. It's not to have savings, it's to have emergency funds in place as an insurance. After all, that's all an insurance is, except with an insurance you're paying a premium. So a monk cannot have insurance like that because we cannot pay a premium, a regular premium. But we can have insurance of lump sum, putting some money in a place that's available for an emergency. And that is what it is, it's insurance. If you have more money than you need or want, are you allowed to donate it? Well, we don't have money. But for food, for instance, and requisites I'm given, yes, I make sure I'm not donating it, it's coming via me, that's all. It's given to me and it goes straight out to others because I can only use so much, and we don't store food overnight. So each day it has to be all packaged back up and sent to someone who needs it that day, for us to start again afresh the following morning. I know you mentioned in present life. In present life, I know you mentioned glasses, but there seems to be rules or something in saying buy me this or that. Confused. Right, no, what I said, I can't say to the Kapia, go and buy me some Coca-Cola. But I can say to the Kapia, I am very thirsty. And even he can say, what would be good for that? What would you like? I could say, oh, some cold Coca-Cola would be nice. That's okay. But I'm not allowed to say, go and buy me this, go and buy me that, because that's just tantamount to saying just buying things. So it means it's thought out. And there's no need to do that, because our practice is renunciation. We don't want for things much. But if I needed some paracetamol, or I don't... Oh, you mentioned glasses. Oh yeah, reading glasses. Yes, well, I had an operation on my eyes, so I don't need glasses anymore. But for close-ups, I'm reading in dim light. I struggle to see, and do need some reading glasses, like all people of my age. And I do have some, very cheap they are in India. They're less than £1, so 99 rupees. But they're good enough I don't really need them so much. I'm reading quite small writing here, no problem at all. But as you see, it's some distance. Yeah, some distance. But if I needed something like that, I'd have to say I need some glasses. I wouldn't say go and buy me some glasses. That's all I was saying there. We can't instruct someone to buy. It's a rule. We cannot ask someone to buy something for us. There is a thing called dakaya, which someone can make a promise, give you a promissory note. In Thailand you get these notes, and I used to give them away because I could never think of anything to use them for. But they say, right, up to a certain amount you can have anything you want. And it's a note. And then you can give that note, I don't know quite how it works because I've never done it, but so the dakaya is someone offering you, say, up to £1 you can have anything you want. And then say you needed a new pen to write with, you'd say, yes, I need a new pen, and I have this dakaya, this note, promissory note, they'd use that person would then pay for that new pen. I think that's how it works. Frankly, this thing's never been of interest to me. For instance, today people are offering me money and I say, no, it's okay, I don't take money, thank you, but please, if you want to buy food, that's okay. I try not to talk, but they're really quite insistent, and someone says, well, have you got the envelope for us to drop it into? That's a way around it. You can have an envelope to drop some money into. I try to avoid the whole money thing entirely, because as soon as you've got it, it's just the whole can of worms and problem. It's like you have a basket that's empty, it's just some food, but if there's money in there, it's like having some poisonous snakes in the bottom, as far as I'm concerned. It's dangerous. Firstly, we're not allowed to touch it, so then what do we do when it's in there? And the temptation, what do I buy? What do I use this for? Where do I put it? Which donation box should it go into? Which kapia can deal with it? It's best just to not deal with it. When you give these donations online, it's very simple because it goes into that stewarded account, and when I do need something, like when we needed some vegetables and things, they can, I mean, usually once a year or once every 6 months, usually when I first arrive into a country and I found a capia, we go to the ATM, get some cash out, that's kept in a safe place, in an envelope, and that capia is responsible for that and buys whatever's needed. And I've never known it to run out. It's because we don't need much. We're renunciants, we need very little. I think I've gone on a bit too much there about that one, haven't I? So let's move on to the next question. Do you sleep... This is from the video in my kuti, my room, the new temple. Do you sleep on that mat, or do you have something more padded? No, that is it. It's a very beautiful grass mat. It's not the plastic version you get nowadays. It's the real grass weaved, what do you call this? Kusala grass mat. It's actually two. I have two because I thought if lay people come, then I can put one out for them to sit on. But actually I put one on top of the other. It's not so much to make it softer, because it makes really no difference. It's an added layer of protection from the little ants, insects. The kuti I'm in is relatively termite free, but where I've been previously it's had lots of termite problems, so you try and have an extra layer. But no, yes, that's it. I don't have anything more padded. That's sufficient. We can have up to 4 fingers breadth of foam or anything soft as a mattress. That's within the rules. It's allowed. So you could have a whole pile of, say, yoga mats, for instance. I've seen that done by monks, which is if they find that more comfortable. But for 8 years I've been sleeping on a hard floor. I've got used to sitting and sleeping on a hard floor. It makes my life so much easier. Before that I had a bad back. Since that I've never had a bad back. I had one during the Vassa time of bad back, but that was an injury. It wasn't an ongoing back problem. I damaged it, I moved something and twisted it. But it was only for a day or two. But laying on a hard floor got rid of that quite quickly, and meditating anyway. So no, I like a hard floor, but you do need something because we are obliged to protect our robes from the floor. I shouldn't be sitting directly on this sand as I am now in these robes. That's actually a rule. I should have my sitting cloth to sit on, but the camera is on that. I couldn't get this to balance on what it's balancing on without something cloth underneath it, so I had to make a sacrifice. It's just a layer of protection, that's all, and it's perfectly adequate. And then for a pillow I use my sangati, which is my outer robe, the robe we don't ever wear. It's just over our shoulder for formal purposes, so it's usually folded up like that. It's quite hard, but it just raises your head a little so you don't get that cricked neck thing. But that's all I need. That means that I've always got everything ever I need with me. We're not to ever be parted from our bowl or our sangati, so everything I need in the world is always with me. If I go anywhere overnight, I have to have those things with me. So if I never return, it doesn't matter. I can sleep in airports, sleep anywhere with what I have, no problem at all. Are you allowed to wear sandals? I've never heard of jandals, that's an interesting word, but sandals I understand. I will happily donate some. Thank you very much, it's very kind of you. I am allowed to wear sandals. I usually in monasteries in Thailand, the monks wear flip-flops. You know, the little thongs, they're called in some places, takis in others, but flip-flops. I've never really got on with flip-flops. I like bare feet, wearing bare feet. On alms round we have to have bare feet. We're not allowed to wear sandals, no. But other than that, yes we are. But I do have some. I was just donated just before I came here some sandals. They're like flip-flops because they're just plastic, rubber, along the lines of the sort of Vietnamese what do they call them? Ho Chi Minh sandals. They're actually Crocs, actually, but they're not the big brightly coloured shoe-like Crocs. They're just the flip-flop kind of. So they're for when I'm travelling or when I'm walking from place to place. They're very sensible, practical, and you can get them wet with no problem. So I do have some, but thank you for offering. It's very kind of you. I wouldn't want to have more than the one pair, because even those you have to carry around if you're walking on the beach on the sand here. I often walk down here without them. Today I went to see a little temple on my way here, which I thought was a temple, where I thought I could sit and talk to you. But it turns out it's a school. So the children were all in there having lessons, so I thought I'd best not disturb them and came here. So I was wearing my sandals, which are over there somewhere now. But one pair is sufficient. But thank you for asking. I'm guessing maybe you must be here in Sri Lanka or something. That's that question. So I think that's all of the questions finished with for today. And just checking. I'll do one. I'll go through this question. No, that I think can wait till tomorrow because it's quite long. Well, my answer would be quite long too. So I'm not sure why it is that I can't seem to check the time when I begin these talks. I don't think it's through lack of mindfulness. I think it's my tendency to just want to do this natural thing. And it's usual when I just talk, it turns out at around 40 minutes, no problems. But when it's questions that I'm reading and flicking from one subject to the other, it can go on a little bit too long. But, you know, what's too long? You don't have to watch it all in one go these days. So on that note, I hope there is something in there that's useful. And if so, you can please use it, share it, and if not, just let it go. Thank you for watching, and I'll look forward to talking to you again soon. And by the way, yes, each and every morning I am still, it's a work in progress, but I am live at 6 a.m. Sri Lanka time, Sinhalese time, which is the same as India Standard Time, IST. I am doing morning chanting and a short meditation. I'm condensing that into within half an hour. Eventually, when I get the balance, probably about 10-15 minutes meditation and a blessing, just to start the day for me and for you before I go on my alms round, which is a little later here. So that's at 6, and I try to go on alms round by 7. So each and every day that will be coming to you from my little kuti, from our new temple there. So on that note, I will wish you many blessings with metta. Sukhi hotu, sukhi hotu, sukhi hotu.